So many of us may go on a date and we're like, oh my God, this is the one. And you really think that they tick all the boxes, but then a year down the line, 2 years down the line, they actually seem like a completely different person. That emotion has completely gone. So how can you actually identify the difference between Mr. Right and Mr. Right now?
Well, it takes time. That's the reality. And you have to get past the drunken love stage. In the beginning, we already have the boxes, right? He has to be this tall. He has to smile like this. He has to make me feel like this. And the reality is, in the beginning, everybody's going to make you feel like that. So you have to give yourself time to get to the point where all of that can kind of dissipate and you can see them very clearly. Your body is literally in a state of just perpetual excitement and adoration. So when you look at this person, it's not really about who they are, it's about how they're making you feel. And what happens is roughly around 18 months or so, that dopamine starts to wear off. We start to kind of get used to the person, and all of a sudden people confuse that for falling out of love. It's not that you're falling out of love, it's that what you need at this stage is changing. And so at that point, that's when you can really assess. That's when we're getting into all the compatibility, right? And so that's why I talk about the dating period needing to be like an interview. It needs to be those conversations that help us recognize, what do you want your forever to look like? And where might that fit into my life? And where might I fit into your forever picture? And oftentimes people aren't talking about the forever. They're just like, oh, this makes me feel so good. I want it to last forever. And when it doesn't, because naturally we're moving towards what we want our forevers to be, and we never had the conversations, we just kind of have the person in tow, we're trying to pull the person back into the picture of what we fantasize about, never stopping to say the reality of things like, so when we retire, do you actually want to retire? At what age do you want to retire? Wait a minute, I want to travel when I'm in my 60s. What do you mean that you want to continue to work? I don't want our parents living with us when they get older. What do you mean you're not going to put your parents in assisted living? I don't want to have kids. What do you mean that you want to have a large family? And it's all the conversations that we don't have when we're just filled with the dopamine and it feels good, which are really the conversations that we need to have to determine, are you my forever? Or do you just make me feel good? It's really two different things. And so oftentimes that's why I say in the beginning, you're not dating the person, you're dating their representative. That is who they think you want them to be. And so in order to really understand who a person is, you have to give it time. It's not just what they're telling you, but it's that, are their actions consistently, not just initially, are they consistently in line with what their words are? And one of the hard things is when you talk about this idea of consistency, people confuse a person being able to do a certain thing once or twice as that they have it. They have the potential. People will say, I know that you can do it. I know that you're capable of it. You're just withholding from me, or you're just treating me poorly, because they've seen that person do something once or twice. But I love to tell people, that is simply statistics and probability. If you are with somebody long enough, you're going to see the full range of everything, right? Like, what do they say? Even a broken clock is right twice a day, right? Yeah. So it's like, eventually you will see that. And I always love to give the analogy. I won't say it out loud because I don't feel like them seeing me in the street and tripping me or something. But I like to talk about the likelihood of a particular sports athlete who was a huge phenomenon, but was horrible from the free throw line. Like, you guys know who I'm talking about. Was horrible. I think like the average was like 80%, which for somebody who doesn't play is incredible. But 80% in a major league, no, it's horrible, right? But what that meant was, if you give him 100 balls, 80 of those balls are going in. It doesn't mean that he's a great free throw player. It just means that if you give him enough opportunities, enough of those balls will hit. The same is true in relationship. If you're with somebody enough, of course, sometimes they will bring you flowers if you love flowers. It doesn't mean that they are invested in bringing you flowers because you love flowers. Of course, they'll take you out to dinner every once in a while because, of course, you have to eat. It doesn't mean that they are committed and enjoy going out to dinner regularly. Of course, they will snuggle with you sometimes. It doesn't mean that they like snuggling and they're emotionally connected. So we have to be careful when we see people people give us experiences that we want, we can't assume that we are compatible or that they are compatible to those experiences. We really have to have the questions asked, and then we have to have the behaviors consistently back it up.
Wow, that analogy is amazing. I love that. So then how do you start to assess what is, I've just given them a lot of chances and, you know, it's 80% versus, oh, this is actually who they are? Because to your point, you actually used the word potential, and that really hit me. Many of us actually invest in someone based on their potential that we hope they're going to actually live to show.
Listen, I was just having this conversation with a client yesterday, and I had to say, honey, aptitude is not the same as achievement. Right? And if you fall in love with potential in the same way they have the potential to do that, they have the potential to do a million other things that are never that. And so you have to ask yourself the question, do you want someone who has the potential, or do you want someone who's already in progress? It is two very different things, and you don't want them trying it when they meet you because it sounds good and they go, oh, I could do that for you. If they're not doing that, that's not who they are. And you don't want to have to bank your entire life. Like, your intimate partner relationship is the most important relationship you will ever be in. It sets the foundation for everything. When that relationship is stable and it's flowing right, everything about your world feels right. But when that relationship is the slightest bit off, it can ruin everything in every day for years. So why would you invest your most intimate relationship in possibility without any real track record? You wouldn't hire an employee who wasn't experienced enough. You wouldn't buy a car that didn't have a track record that you trusted. You wouldn't trust your children to places and spaces where there wasn't a good track record. Why would you trust yourself, your entire life, to someone who doesn't have a good track record that's representative of the life that you want to live? It doesn't make sense to do that. And I don't mean somebody who can talk a good game. I mean someone who has walked the walk. How do you invest forever in someone who hasn't even made it a year? No, ma'am. No, absolutely not.
This is so strong. As you were asking those questions, though, I was thinking, I think there's a part of the hope. Right? Like, I really hope this person works out, because they're saying the things, they tick the boxes, and so they're showing the interest, because I love the idea of potential versus progress. That was so strong. But then someone in that position, again, I love playing devil's advocate, maybe like, yeah, but what if the progress started yesterday?
Oh, again, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. And listen, I am one of the most hopeful people that you will ever meet in life. When I have clients, I literally will tell some of my clients, I will hold the hope for you when you can't hold it for yourself. I will hold the best possibilities for you until you can see them for yourself. And when it comes to hoping that a particular relationship could and would be everything you want it to be, you have the right to hope to your very last breath. But what I tell people is hold on to the hope, but treat people according to who they are today. Who they are today. I can hope that we will have and do all the work to develop a particular relationship, but I can also entrust my heart and my life according to who I know you to be today. So why would you hope that I could have a particular outcome when you can make the choices to create that life for yourself? It's not somebody else that gives us the experiences that we want. It's not the other person that gives us our forever. It is us who gives us our forever. But we have to be clear on what we want that forever to look like, and then we have to make those consistent choices every day in order to take ourselves there. We have to choose our forever every day. And every single thing you do, Lisa, if your audience doesn't know anything else, everything that you do is either taking you towards the goals you have or away from them. There is no in between. And so you have to ask yourself, is this taking me towards my forever? And if it is, you do more of that. Consistently rush towards that, lean into that, nurture that, grow that, scream for it, advocate for it. But if it's taking you away from it, don't make excuses for it. Don't rationalize it. Don't justify it. Don't wait for it. Don't delay it. Take action to move towards it. And if you have a partner who's not working in that direction, wake up. Ask the questions. Hold the accountability, not just for them, but more importantly for you. because we will get so caught up in having a specific person give us an experience that oftentimes we'll never have the experience at all, because we'll decide, not only do I want that experience, but I'm making the decision that it has to be you to give it to me. And so I will lose sight of the experience in focusing on you. And I will get interlocked into the commitment that it has to be you. So I'm going to fight you. I'm going to pray with you. I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to beg you. I'm going to plead. I'm going to scream. I'm going to stand still. I'm going to try to do all the things. I'm going to try to do your part in order to get me to the forever that I want. I will even tell you, if you just meet me halfway, if you just do a little, I'll do the rest. I'll sacrifice. I know that I wanted somebody who would do all of these things, but if you just do this, because I really want to do this with you, if you just do this, I'll do all the rest. And then all of a sudden we don't recognize and we don't understand, why am I exhausted? Why am I depleted? Why am I unfulfilled? Why am I moving towards forever, but it feels like they're moving towards a different one? Yet I stay day after day hoping that they will change, but it's really so I don't have to.
Oh, I literally was going to ask, why do we do that? If we often, assuming someone's already dated a few people, and then you get into another relationship and you repeat that cycle, what is it that we're trying to potentially fill within us? Is it wanting to be loved so much that we're willing to overlook these other things?
Not always. Sometimes it is the story that we tell ourselves, and often we don't even believe that we're worthy or deserving of the forever that we dream of. Right? We've been through so much trauma. We've been in relationships where we were manipulated, where we were lied to, where we were walked on, where we let ourselves be walked on, where we told ourselves stories and looked the other way when we weren't getting the love that we wanted. And it didn't begin in that relationship. Oftentimes that is a pattern that goes all the way back to our childhoods. Maybe we saw our parents in relationships like that. Maybe our parents treated us in particular ways. Maybe we didn't even have our parents. And so when we are confronted with great relationships, with potential forever relationships, we have experienced so much that in that moment, we actually will reject the very thing that is for us. They'll try to tell us that they love us. You couldn't possibly really love me. Or maybe if you really knew who I was, you wouldn't love me. I haven't even told you about all the things I've been through, so you can't possibly. And now I feel horrible because you think you love this version of me. So now I can't even really show up in a forever relationship with you. Or this idea of, I don't deserve this, and they're going to figure out who I am. And if they figure out who I am, then they're going to leave me. And so all of a sudden, I'm not focused on my own needs. I'm focused on how to please them, how to say all the things, how to be all the things, how to show up as the things. And I'm never looking for the reciprocation. I don't even have the expectation that you will meet my needs. I don't even know what my needs are because I lost track of them even before I got into this relationship with you. I may just be so happy that somebody like you gave me attention, that I just show up really small, hoping that as long as I don't say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing or need too much or want too much, as long as this is just enough and I go along with the life that you say you want, you will stay with me forever. But it's not about the quality of the forever. It's just about the quantity.
Oh, God, that's so strong. As we're talking about compatibility here and really identifying that person that is right for you for the long haul, you talk about the pitfalls of almost being compatible.
Yes.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, the idea of almost being compatible, I tell people all the time, it's not the person that's absolutely incompatible that you have to worry about. Like, you know, the people that they walk into the room and you're just like, oh no, I don't even have to give them a, you know, you just know right off the bat. And they're like, well, what's wrong with him? And you're like, girl, I know, it's a no. It's a no for me, right? It's not that. It's the person that's just compatible enough. It's like they check so many of the boxes that you will invest your time. And how you know that you are not truly compatible is because you'll be like, they're so perfect. If we can just fix this, this, and this, oh my gosh. And because it's the potential, it seems so close. You're so close to having the fantasy of what you want that you will spend all of your time, you will spend all of your energy, you will spend all of your money, you will spend all of your investment of every resource that you have trying to make this fit. And so you look up one day and you go, you know what? I knew a long time ago this wasn't for me. I knew I was sitting in this relationship and I should have walked away. But by the time I realized that they weren't my person, I had already invested so much time, or I've sacrificed so much, they owe me this, or I don't want somebody else to have all the things that I worked for. I helped to make us this. I helped support you to become this man. I helped to support you to get your credit together, to get your salary together, to get your relationships with your family and your friends and your kids together. Like, I earned the forever that you owe me. And so I'm committed and I'm invested. And if we can just fix these two things, but really we can't fix those things because the reality is they are not the person. And so your life is literally screaming to you, they are not your person. But the problem is that change is hard. Change in behavior is hard. Letting go is hard. Healing yourself is hard. Grieving for so many people is almost impossible. I don't want to let this relationship go. And the reality is we grieve the potential of the forever that we dreamed of, not recognizing we were never having it anyway. We were waiting on that in the relationship. We were waiting for the partner in the relationship to give that to us. And so this is the hard part. The brain does not distinguish between reality and fiction. Right? If you read something, it can be as fantastical as all get out, but your brain will really process it. It will create the picture. It will create the memories. Relationships are very much the same. If I fall in love with you and I have a fantasy of us to forever, I've dreamed about our wedding. I've dreamed about our sunsets on the beach. I've dreamed about our laying up together in the middle of the night. I've dreamed about us getting old together. And we may only be in our 30s or 40s, right? So the idea of leaving you, my brain already knows the trajectory that it's headed on. I can't leave you because that doesn't compute. You are supposed to be with me. This you not being in my life, I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what to do with myself. So we have to grieve the death of something that we've already made memories of. We have a literal blueprint for where we thought we were going. And oftentimes the idea of having to let that go, to change and go in a completely new direction with a completely new person. I often have people tell me that they think that they're cheating on their ex when they come into new relationships. The idea of kissing someone else or making love to someone else or moving in with someone else or having a child with someone else. And it's because they never saw themselves in relationship with this person because they weren't living in the present. They were living in a future, a fantasy world that they created. And so their life doesn't make space for their reality. It's constantly trying to execute the fantasy with someone who they were never even compatible with. They were just compatible enough.
Okay, so many questions. You're blowing my mind here. Okay, so the idea of grieving your future memories is so profound. I've thought of grieving your future identity.
Yeah.
Like I thought I was going to be a mother. I actually did. And then I realized, I actually love business so much and empowering other people. But I had to grieve the idea that I was going to be a mother. But that I felt like was more identity versus a memory that you've thought about, like dying with the person and now having to let that go.
Like think about you and your husband, right? You've already seen yourself old. You've
already
already seen yourself, right? So the idea, if something were to happen and all of a sudden they're not there, it happens also with death of partners, right? It's like it doesn't compute. We were supposed to do all of these things. We actually may have made plans for some of these things. And so all of a sudden, when you have to step into a reality that doesn't include them, it becomes out of habit, right? I'm used to calling them. I'm used to texting them. This is the time they would come through the door. That's why when people break up and they can't move out of the places that they're in, we talk about what it looks like to even just move the furniture around, right? Change the way that things look, because your brain is hardwired for patterns. Your nervous system becomes deactivated when it becomes used to its environment, but it automatically becomes activated around anything that's new, new stimuli because it has to figure out, am I safe here? Am I safe in this environment? Right? So the idea that you are with a new person, it activates us. It makes us nervous. It makes us excited. We don't know about this relationship, and we really crave that certainty and the peace that comes with being able to settle into a person. And so we will often confuse safety and peace with compatibility, and that's not either. I tell people all the time, like, if you're in a new environment and you're with a person that does not activate your nervous system, they're not new, they're familiar. And so if you are trying to enter into a new relationship with new, healthier patterns than the old stuff that you used to do, and that person feels like they just fit, run. Run. Be very careful, because if they fit who you used to be, that means that they are not compatible with who you're trying to become. And you have to pay attention to that. It's so important.
Oh my God.
It's so important.
Okay. There's so many things you said there that I really want to dive into. So first of all, how we're talking about almost compatible, and you said that they're fitting certain buckets, that they're, almost right.
Yeah.
Where's the fine line, though, between these are the things that I want for my future, this is for my forever, I've met this person, they don't necessarily match everything, and you turn them away because they're not, quote unquote, perfect.
Yeah. Well, the key is they don't have to match everything, right? How I love to tell people, if you care about a relationship that has emotional intimacy, and let's be real, not everybody needs that in a relationship. Not everybody is even looking for that. Oftentimes, relationships for most people historically have been about partnership. Do we line up in such a way that I'm going to get a select set of needs that are important to me met, and you're going to get a select needs that are important to you met? You look at traditional marriage was not necessarily about how you make me feel. That's why infidelity was through the roof, right? He had home base, and then he would go and sleep with his secretary because that's where the fire and the passion was. But his wife was the one that kept the house clean, that had the meals there, that took care of the kids. So it was a very different experience. This idea that now we are marrying or staying in relationships because of how you make me feel, and I want emotional intimacy, and I want to be able to connect with you, and I want you to talk to me about how you're feeling and what you need and what makes you happy and what makes you sad. This is new for a lot of people, and a lot of people don't know how to do this form of relationship. Particularly a lot of men, because they weren't socialized to have to deal with feelings. They were socialized, if you can protect and provide, then you can have any woman that you choose to, and she will be lucky to be able to have you. And women thought, as long as I have a good man who takes care of my house, who is good to me and who is good to our children, that is supposed to be enough. So why am I still unfulfilled? Why am I still drinking every single day in order to be able to tolerate this life experience? Why do I still go on girl trips where my friendships are the ones that are really more important to me? Why does my partner still go on boys trips, not just because he's trying to spend time with the boys, but because actually we're not connected and there's no friendship or companionship between us? Right? These are real dynamics that we have to grapple with in relationships. And so when you look at this idea of who my forever is, they don't have to be exactly like you, and they don't have to check every box. You have to enjoy each other. Your forever needs to be compatible with their forever in such a way that it makes you both better, that allows you both to thrive. And I love to tell my folks, if emotional intimacy is what's most important to you in a relationship, then your forever partner should feel like you get to have a sleepover with your best friend every night. Right? Yeah. That is like, think about when we were kids, or even now, for all the folks who love to have their girls get together. Think about when you have a sleepover. You anticipate it all week long. You wake up, the day is here. You're like, oh my gosh, okay, so I have to go to the store, and we're going to do this, and then we're going to stay up doing this. Oh, and we get to talk about this, and oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Like, if that doesn't happen in your relationship most of the time, like, I look forward to seeing you. I can't wait to tell you this. Oh, I can't wait to pick up the phone and share this with you. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to lay next to you tonight. Oh my gosh, as I'm making my coffee, I can't wait to grab you a cup too. Hey babe, hey, are you thinking about? if it doesn't feel like there's a friendship, a meaningful connection where they can see all of you, where you're not having to hide yourself or correct yourself or adjust yourself. And that's different than me becoming the very best version of myself, right? If they're helping me do that through love and accountability, that's different. But if I'm not enjoying you, and more importantly, if I'm not enjoying me in your presence, then you are not my person. This is supposed to be fun. This is supposed to be an enhancement to my life, not a supplement of my life. You were supposed to enhance my forever, not change it to be something totally different than what I wanted for myself. And if it's not that, then you may be with the wrong person.
What up, homie? I got something free and new to share with you right now. How often are you visited by that negative voice in your head telling you that you're not smart enough, that you're not good enough, experienced enough, not fill in the blank? One of the most powerful things you can learn to do in life is to turn that negative voice into your bestie. And I want to teach you how to do that and so much more in my 4 Steps to Becoming Confident workshop. And guys, the most amazing thing is you can actually register for completely free for this workshop. So click the link on your screen and I'll see you on the inside. Oh my God, do I enjoy myself when I'm with you? That really hit me, because I don't think we ever really ask that question. I really think it's like, do I enjoy this person? How do they make me feel? Going back to what you said earlier. But that's so interesting. And do you think that that would then hopefully help us in moments where maybe if we're in a toxic relationship, that we're able to leave because we put ourselves first? Because I think about when a lot of people in a relationship, whether it's toxic or they're just not compatible and then they leave, there's certain elements of that relationship they miss.
Yeah.
And so how do you know what the things are that are just not pulling you back to your familiar, like you said, versus, oh, actually, maybe they are the right person?
Yeah. Well, the reason why people stay in toxic relationships is really because the story that they're telling themselves most of the time is that this is the best I'm going to get, right? And having some of the things I want is better than having nothing at all. I try to help my clients understand the people that you choose to entertain in your life are going to check some of the boxes. You are not going to choose a person that you are not compatible with. So this idea of, I'm never going to have these things again, is simply impossible. And we go back to that hope. I try to instill hope in my clients and folks that I talk to all over the place. And I love to tell them, get excited when you think about relationship. Because if you're in an incredible relationship today, get excited about all the things that you can do to make it better. But if you know that you are in a toxic, unhealthy relationship, then I want you to be even more excited, because this is the worst relationship you are ever going to be in for the rest of your life. And the reason for that is because if you can find the courage, if you can find the fortitude, if you can find the willpower to walk away from this, you will never choose a situation like this or less again. The next person that you entertain, you will say, oh, I've already done that. You're going to have to come with something much better. I've already seen that. So anything that you choose after this is going to be better. And what I love is if you think about, even for yourself, think about all the relationships that you've had, even, if you started way back in high school, like most people, right? We look at relationships, and every relationship we go, they're so wonderful. They're the best. If I thought that was love, I can't even tell you what this is. Oh my gosh. And it's just because we won't choose less than what we've already had. And the important thing is that when you leave toxic relationships, you have to do your healing work. So often what we forget is the thing in between. It's like this bad relationship and the forever relationship that we want. I tell my clients, it's like, take a picture of it like a snapshot, and then I want to zoom in between the last relationship and the new one to see all of the muck that has to be cleaned out, because your relationships are a reflection of where you are. And if you haven't done the work to detox from everything that happened in the toxic relationship, to heal yourself, to forgive yourself, to be aware of yourself, to reorient yourself, to rehabilitate yourself, like everything new, right? Revitalize, just rebirth yourself. If you haven't done the work, then you will choose similar relationships. You'll just make sure it doesn't look exactly like that. Maybe it'll have one thing better. Maybe it'll have two things better. But if you really want to do the work now, who you will be compatible with on the healed side of who you are versus who you were in the unhealthy side that let you stay in those toxic places and spaces. They're really two different people. So it's important that you do your work and don't just jump into the, as I love to say, the rebound relationship. The rebound relationship is not your forever. Okay. The rebound relationship is typically the polar opposite of the last relationship that you came out of. It's like a natural gut reaction. We go, oh, I don't ever want to do that again. That guy was so quiet. He never spoke to me. Now I'm going to go and get the life of the party. You know, that guy was so, he was so emotionally unavailable. He never touched me. Now I'm going to get the guy who just wants to be up under me all the time. And the reality is we don't necessarily need the 180. We don't need the total opposite end of the pendulum. We need to be in a healthy place, usually somewhere right in between. But when we're not healthy ourselves, we just kind of want to get away from what that toxic thing was. And we think that the answer lies in doing the exact opposite. Okay, I got that wrong. Let me just do everything different than what I knew before. But that's not the answer. The answer is in refining yourself enough to know what attracted me to that relationship, what made me say yes to it, what made me stay in it even when every bell and whistle in my body was telling me to go. Why did I stay? And what do I need to change so this time when I choose a partner that I'm compatible with, I'm not losing myself, but instead I'm listening to myself. How do I feel? What am I having go on in my mind? What conversations am I having with myself, about them, about us, about where I am in my life? How does being in relationship with this person affect me? And again, is that taking me towards my forever goal or away from it?
Is that what you call then? I think you call it something like the starter marriage syndrome.
Oh yeah, how to avoid the starter marriage. I always say I got to write a book about it one day. I really do. And it's really because we don't learn how to do relationship. It's painful. Relationships are the one thing that we never learn how to do, that we spend most of our lives trying to do well. But if you've never learned how to do it, how can you expect to do it and do it well and have it last forever? And the reality is that most of us really do it based upon how we feel, those initial feelings. And we get locked into a relationship where we say, I love you and you love me, and we just have to try to figure out how to make it work. Not realizing that it takes so much more than love. Love has to be the foundation, but it's not the roof. It's not the ceiling. It's not the floor. It's not the walls. It is the bare minimum that if I don't feel that love and affection for you, then we're doomed if that is a requirement for our relationship. Now, again, if we're just trying to raise some kids or build some businesses or just have an empire or be that trophy couple that everybody looks up to and we make millions, but we really could care less and we have really discrete agreements between us and our relationship is really not about us, it's just about how it looks, that's one thing. But if you're wanting a substantive relationship where somebody knows you and you know them and they are feeding you and you're feeding them and you are one to truly becoming one, then that takes a lot more than just simply how you make me feel.
Why do we think then that love is not just the foundation, but actually is the roof, the walls, and the entire house, and then, I don't need new furniture?
Well, I think it's because love is the one thing that we all aspire to, and the idea of having love forever is something that seems so unattainable. It's almost like a fairy tale. Literally, the whole fairy tale industry is written.
Yeah, I was going to say Disney made their money off it.
Right into there forever, right? So the idea of it, though, we have to recognize that there are different types of love and different areas that we love our partners in, and in different ways that we give and express love. And so I think what we have to realize is we love a lot of people that we are no longer in relationship with. We love a lot of people that are toxic for us. We love a lot of people that can't love us in return. And just because you are capable of love, just because you want to be in love, just because you are radiating or emanating love, just because you are planting love, doesn't mean that that's where you should be receiving your love from. And this is important because people think, I'm so nice to everybody. I treat everybody well. I deserve a certain type of treatment. I deserve for that person to love me. I've done this for them. I've done this for them. I do this for them. I want to do this for them. Why isn't that love enough? But just because you are planting that love with somebody doesn't mean that they have what it takes to reciprocate it to you in ways that matter or in ways that you even need or want them to. So I often say, give love, but don't expect love to come back like a boomerang exactly from where you sent it out to. That is not always it. And another part of that that's really big is that people don't learn how to date. They don't learn how to put themselves in the right pools for their mate. And so I love when we're doing like the dating stuff. You know, first and foremost, as women, we've got to get out more. I always tell folks, he is not coming to your door unless he is your delivery driver, okay? So this whole go to work and come home and get up, wash, rinse, repeat, and do it again, you are not going to find the love that you want doing it that way. But you're also not going to find the love that you want doing kind of like the shotgun method where you're just out there. Spirit, I've gone to every bar, I've gone to every club, I've gone to this, I've gone to that. It's kind of like, nope, nope, nope. You don't need quantity. You need quality by understanding who your mate is. Who do you desire him to be? And I don't mean the phenotypical, the 6'5", the brown eyes, the structure and the teeth. I don't mean that. I mean, at his core, who is he? What does he do? Where does he hang out? You know, if it's Friday night at 7 o'clock, where is your person? What kind of industry is he in? So, for example, I had a woman who said, well, you know, I said, well, who is your partner when he gets up to go to work every day? Like, how does he dress? Does he put on a uniform? Does he put on a suit? Does he put on scrubs? Like, who is he? She said, oh, well, oh no, he's corporate. He wears a suit. Okay, so is he going into an office every day? Is he the boss? Is he the supervisor? Like, what level does he work at? Oh, okay, well, he is an executive. Okay, well, what industry? Oh, financing, banking. Okay, wonderful. So now we're getting somewhere. What do you know about the banking industry? Oh, well, what do you mean? I mean, like, do you hang out with bankers? Do you go to banking conventions? When the conventions even come into town, do you like hang out in the bars or the hotels where these things are happening? Do you go to any workshops? Well, no. Well, baby, how are you going to meet somebody in banking? You don't, like, you're not in the pool, right? Oh, he's a musician. Oh, okay, well, what kind of musician? Oh, orchestra. Okay, wonderful. When's the last time you've been to a symphony? I don't. Oh, okay, well, when is the last time you've been to any musical performances? When's the last time you've gone to a workshop or a class or a lecture? Oh, I haven't. So how are you going to meet a musician? Like, are you going to pick up the peas in the frozen food section at the grocery store? Does he even go to the grocery store, right? And so if you don't put yourself in places and spaces to meet the people that you desire to be in relationship with, how will that happen? And so we have to become much more strategic about how we do that.
And is that also potentially the reality versus the dream?
It's oftentimes the fantasy without knowing how to convert. Right? I say you can be in relationship with anybody that you want to, you know, but it is, what is it going to take to get there?
Right.
That's back to the aptitude versus the achievement. But the other part of that is, do you have a very clear understanding of what it means to be in relationship with that person? And that's what goes back to fantasy, right? Somebody who is a banker in finance, as an executive at the top, how many hours does he actually spend at home? How many hours does he spend traveling? How many hours does he spend relaxing? How many hours does he spend in relationship with a partner? And are you prepared for that lifestyle, right? You want to marry a surgeon. What does it mean for your partner to be on call, to have to get out of the bed at 3 a.m. and to be gone for 16 hours? You love a man in uniform. You want to marry a firefighter, but he has to stay at the station 4 days a week, and he's going to do it for 20 years. What is that going to look like for you? You love the idea of a soldier, but he's in combat. and he has post-traumatic stress disorder and depression and is putting his life on the line and may be deployed all the time, or you may have to move all the time. Are you prepared for those things? Or is it the fantasy? And then I love to get into the fantasy. So then I go, tell me about the pictures. Tell me about the dream. What do you see? And we often don't even realize that we have a story. We often don't realize that we have a picture. And so I will constantly orient people to their pictures and then overlay the picture with the reality to see how clearly do they line up, or is that a very distorted view? And then how do we help bring it back to the reality? Because that is what you're going to be living all the time, fighting for the fantasy if they're incongruent.
Oh, and then if you end up getting that person, at least you've almost already laid the groundwork to then know what that expectation is of how they're going to show up in that relationship.
Yeah.
To your point, so many people say to me now, in hindsight, now that my husband's financially successful, everyone's like, oh, you're so lucky. You're so lucky, right? And I'm always like, yes, there's an element of luck of when you meet people, but the truth is, if I wasn't okay with the fact that from Monday to Friday, I barely see
Come
him.
on. Come
Barely.
on.
We have a rule that he just has to kiss me goodnight before we go to bed.
See?
That's it. Now, a lot of people will feel neglected if they were in that type of relationship where the husband isn't coming home at 7 p.m. or 6 p.m. to have dinner. And so it's the idea of, I love and I'm very attracted to ambition. But what comes with ambition? It comes with the person putting that first before you. On an everyday basis. And I'm fine with it. I actually grew up with a father that was very much in business. But when he was with me, he showed me the love.
Yes.
And so that is my understanding or my feeling with my husband. It's like when I'm with you, I need your attention.
Yeah.
I need you to put your phone down and I need you to be present. But I don't need you all the time.
Exactly. And you have to know how your makeup, i.e. your nurture or your nature or a combination of the two, are or are not compatible with the relationship that you're trying to be in. You were conditioned to that experience. You already knew what that experience entailed. It was familiar and comfortable. So you were able to look and go, listen, I'm a very ambitious, driven person myself. I don't need you to be all the way up under me all the time in order to feel fulfilled. As long as we can do this, this works for us. And because of that, you guys were able to build not just an amazing relationship, but an amazing life because your lives are compatible. But had that not been the case, had you been someone who, as your representative, said, oh, yes, of course, okay, I can do that. And then you get married and then all of a sudden you're like, I need you to be home. I know I said kiss me at night, but I want to have dinner every night. I need you to be here by 6 o'clock. Okay, now, you know what? And I need you to be here on Sundays and maybe twice a week. Right? And all of a sudden, there are some real hard choices that have to be made. Either your partner has to decide to be less of who they are in order to meet your needs because those needs are not compatible. And then he may become resentful. He may become withdrawn. He may be sullen. He may resent you. All of a sudden, the dynamic changes in the relationship. Or if you say, he says, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to be able to do that. So you say, okay, so now I'm going to have to sacrifice and I'm going to have to be okay with not having the physical affection. I'm going to have to be okay with not having your physical presence. I'm going to have to shrink in order to figure out how to survive this relationship. And it's just not compatible. And that is when we get into that whole quality versus quantity. You can choose to stay together, but that means one or both of you will always be miserable. And why do you choose that? And so many people do choose that. Let's be real. You talk about starter marriages. There are a lot of people who their identity is tied to their relationship status. They don't want to be divorcees. They don't want to be remarried. They don't want blended families. They don't want any of those things. And so they will sit in relationships that are lackluster. They will sit in relationships that check some of the primary boxes and let go of the boxes that would actually feed them in order to be fed in different ways. And so we have to think about in all of our relationships, what is most important to you? And it's not just about today. I love to tell people, do today what your future self will thank you for. Because as hard as it is today, it will be so much harder when you look back and you go, I wasted my 20s, my 30s, my 40s, my 50s, my 60s, in a relationship with somebody that never really loved me, or I never really loved them, because they were a good man, because they made sure that they never missed a mortgage payment, or they made sure that the kids got to school, or they didn't cheat on me. They did all the right things, and so I sacrificed being happy, and I actually sacrificed their happiness too, because they had the right for somebody to actually love them, to pour into them, to be soul connected to them, you know, at that soul level. But we just sacrificed and we made it through. It looked good. It fit the picture. We had great social media presences. We looked like the ideal family. People looked up to us. Meanwhile, I was always depleted and exhausted and broken and completely longing for something that felt more real for who I was.
God, how do you start breaking out of that then? Because as you were talking, I can imagine a lot of people also have the external pressure of other people saying,
yes,
why are you leaving? He hasn't cheated on you. He's a wonderful man.
He's a good man.
Look how good he is with the kids, right? He looks like he loves you. But let's say all those are true, right? He is a great father and he is a good man.
Yeah.
But that chemistry, that connection is no longer there.
Yeah.
And then the unknown of, well, what if I end up being alone for the rest of my life? And I'm older, and you know, we all hear, especially as women, your biological clock is ticking, and you know, you better get a man before it's too late.
Yes. I think it's really interesting because what people want to know is with certainty I'm not making the wrong choice. And so they're afraid that if I leave this, what if this was the best that I could ever get? Right? And so when everyone around you is saying, hey, that's a good they do this, they check all the boxes, I have to reorient people back to their own voices, because I tell them they're not telling you about your experience. They're telling you about theirs. They're telling you about their version of that person. But you are the person that's in relationship with that person 24/7. You are the person that wakes up and goes to sleep with that person. You are the person that's co-parenting with them. You are the person that's navigating in the house with them and feels connected or disconnected. And it's really funny. I was just having this conversation with somebody yesterday. I said, you know, especially for men and especially in communities of color, I love to say I am hated by a lot of traditional men. And the reason for that, and I totally empathize with them. I understand, because I am requiring them to do something that they have not had to do and that they were lied to about. Because we now live in a society that values feelings. We now live in a society that lets us be who we are in our full entirety. And with toxic masculinity, unfortunately, that we and previous generations put on men, what we told them was literally protect and provide, and then you can have the woman that you want. And now women are saying, no, that's not enough. I want you to spend time with me. I want you to love me. I want you to share your emotional self with me. And the men are like, this is some bull. This is ridiculous, right? Like, that's not, you want us to do everything. You want us to be all the things. And the women are like, well, yeah, kind of, because like I got to be all the things. Like, you want me to be soft and nurturing and take care of these kids and swing from the chandeliers and show up well in public, and you want me to do all the things. And then you don't want to be responsible for being connected in relationship with me. You say go hang out with your girls and get it from there, but you better not get it from another man, right? And then they even look down on some men who have the ability to show up emotionally present. And it feels somehow like we're asking them to do something that is unfair, when really what's unfair is what we've placed upon them, which is requiring them not to be their fullest expression of themselves, to tap into their own feelings, their own thoughts, their own needs, their hopes, their dreams, to even say, how do you feel? And they'll start to tell you what they think. And I'll go, no, that's how you think. That's the conclusion that you have about how you feel. How do you feel? And they'll get really uncomfortable. Like, look, what are you asking me to do? Oh, feelings, no, feelings are not important. And I'm like, feelings are at the base of everything, because that's the gauge, the thermometer that tells you how you're doing. And so this idea, when we look at relationships and we look at what we're asking for, men feel, at least right now, really, really rejected by us, and really being put upon by having this added layer of expectation. It's like how we told people, just go to college. If you just go to college, you'll have a great life. And so they make all the sacrifices and all the investments and all the money and all the time. And then they get out and they're disillusioned when they go, wait a minute, I can't pay my bills. Something is wrong. You told me the wrong thing. men are having that experience in relationships with women today because what we're wanting is something more. And unfortunately, they never learned how to do it in their conditioning, in their nurturing. And so we're having all kinds of conflicts as we try to have these emotionally connected, emotionally intimate relationships with each other now.
Wow, that's never really dawned on me. I actually feel bad for men in this situation. Like, I totally understand what you're saying. So is it, if a man isn't able, or your partner isn't able to have that emotional intimacy with you, do you feel like that can be a potential deal breaker on your compatibility?
It depends on how important it is for you. Because what will happen is you'll sit in a space where you feel dissatisfied. I call it dying on the vine, right? It's like, think about the grape that's like full of juice and it sits out there by itself too long and it just starts to wither up and die until it becomes a raisin and then it kind of falls off. If you are a person who needs that, if you are a person who craves that, if you are a person who that literally feeds you in ways that allows you to thrive, then yeah, you're going to have some real issues if you can't figure out where to get that need met. And oftentimes what people will say is, because again, we're committed to the person and not to the experience, we will stay with people if they check enough of the other boxes and we'll go, okay, we'll just figure out how to make it work, right? I have women all the time. I had someone yesterday who said to me, you know, I think that there's a pattern that's happening. She named a whole bunch of celebrities who have gotten divorced in the last year or two, who are, as they go through the dating experience, commenting on how bad it is, right? Everything from there's piss in the pool. Like, this pool is tainted. This is not this. I got to try to find in. No, right? And so I think that it's just hilarious. So she was saying she's in what I would say is probably a subpar relationship, but she made the choice to stay because it meets enough of the survival needs, right? Great house, great car, solid marriage in terms of amount of time, their social network, who their friends are, who the kids play with, the bills get paid every month. It meets all of those needs, but never mind that she's dying on the vine. And so as she sees all these women who have left marriages wanting better, and as they're going through the dating experience and they're going, oh, it's horrible out here, she felt better about making her choice to stay, because she was like, so, you know, Spirit, I want to know, like, do you think that they made these mistakes? And she was really wanting me to like go, yes, they absolutely should have stayed with their partners, because she wanted to feel good about the choice that she was making. And I said, no, I don't think that they made the bad decision. I think that they didn't have the right support system in the front to remind them that there were going to be the bad moments, that there were going to be all the no's before you have the yes, that dating and not finding your person is part of the experience, but each of those experiences has something to teach you. They didn't learn how to date well so that they can have the experiences that they want. And so the dating experience is reflecting back to them where they are in the process. They need to go inward to do the work to change the strategy for how they are dating. It's not about that there aren't any quality men left. There are incredible men out here. Half the time I wish that I could like connect certain people together. There are incredible men who want to be fathers, who want to be husbands, who want to come and have tremendously incredible relationships. They want monogamy, they want fidelity, they want all of these things. So I will never say that it's just one group that is wanting something and another doesn't, and that's why they can't find each other. They can't find each other because they don't know how to wind up in the same locations. And then when they get there, they don't know how to show up in a way that says, I'm open, I'm healthy, I'm receptive, choose me. Instead, we find oftentimes healthy people and then go, there's no way that they could want me, because we haven't done the work in order to say, I'm really clear on who I am and what I want. Now let me come in here and see who might be compatible with that. Now let the interview begin.
Ooh, okay, as you were talking about emotional intimacy and then kind of if that's important, I'd actually love to go through it. I believe you have an acronym, RISES? So if you don't mind sharing the acronym.
Yeah, okay, so RISES, the R stands for recreational intimacy. And when you think about intimacy, first and foremost, you're thinking about it from the perspective of how important is this to me? Okay, so recreation, doing things with a person, doing things with my partner, when I think about my picture that I am creating, how important is it that we're doing things together? And what kinds of things are we doing together? Are we sitting on the couch like this, having stimulating conversations? Are we out skydiving? Are we all over the place? What are we doing in terms of our recreation? So that I'm clear on what I need in terms of compatibility from a person. So if I'm, like I say, that type A personality, and I like to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and the coffee is brewed and I'm going out for a run, and then by noontime I've already had 3 meetings, I'm gonna go to the gym, I've got all this happening, and I want a partner that's doing the same thing, even if we're not doing it together, but that's kind of the life that we're living, then it's important. If I have somebody that likes to sleep in till noon, just kind of rolls out of bed and they're, hey babe, yeah, I'm gonna get in the shower. It's about 2:30 now. I may kind of around 7 start to make some calls to see what's up. And by 11 o'clock at night, I'm stepping out. When you're at 10 o'clock just climbing into the bed, that may not work for the two of you. It may be hard to find the space in there. The I is for intellectual intimacy. Am I a person, am I one of those sapiosexuals that the more you talk to me, I'm just like, ooh.
Sapiosexual?
Sapiosexual,
Oh,
yes.
I've heard of that.
Oh, sapiosexual means to experience attraction or arousal from someone's intellect. So does someone talk to me and the more brilliant they are, I just get tingly, like, talk about everything. Talk about politics. What do you think about this? What do you think about sports? What do you think about this? Like, the more you talk to me, the more I need it. I crave it. It just energizes me. Or am I a person who says, listen, I don't need to have a whole lot of intellectual conversations. All that foo-foo pontificating and just keep it simple, real basic. We don't even have to let's not engage in that space. Certain people are that way and it works. But if you're a person who's a sapiosexual at the highest end and you have a partner who doesn't really talk about much of anything, isn't really intellectually driven at all, it's not something that they aspire to really communicate in that space and be intimate in that way, that could be problematic because you will be like, I need, talk to me about anything, please. Give me something here. I'm dying on the vine, right? So that, the S, spiritual intimacy. And I always tell people it's very important that they understand that spiritual intimacy is different from religious intimacy, right? We don't have to, we don't have to have the same religious beliefs in order to make this work. We can have even an inter-spiritual or an inter-religious relationship. I have clients who are Muslim who are dating Christians. I have individuals who are agnostic who are dating Jewish folks. It just depends on how we fit together. Do we fit together in a way that you are going to allow me to thrive in my spiritual beliefs? Are you going to be supportive of my spiritual beliefs? Or are you going to do things that cause me to question my belief system? Are you going to be subversive or even triggering in my belief systems? Are you going to harm me? Yes, right? Because if I have a partner who is really working on their spiritual growth and their evolution, and I go, why are you wasting your time on that? Do you really believe that? If that's the case, then why this? How is your God dealing with that now? Right? And make you responsible for their own faith or their own spiritual relationship. That could be a very toxic experience. So having that compatibility around how do we fit in ways where we feel spiritually safe and well nurtured with each other, whatever our belief system is, becomes important. The E, which is one of my favorites because I'm just an emotionally intimate person, right? The E is for emotional intimacy. And that is, how do we fit in that emotional space? Do I feel safe with you? Do I feel connected to you and with you? Do I open up in ways that allow you to really know who I am at the deepest levels of myself? Emotional intimacy is really interesting because I say it's the gift that we give to people. It's the parts of us that nobody gets unless we give them access to it. And so am I a person who not only gives that access freely, but I want to receive in return? Or am I a person who may not be emotionally available in this space? And remember, we don't have to be these things. We just have to line up in such a way that it fits well. So perhaps I've had a traumatic past, and I'm not really emotionally connected. Or maybe I don't value emotional intimacy in any real meaningful way. So it's not important for us to connect in those spaces. We can do all the other things and we like each other and it just kind of fits and works for us. That's fine. But how do we line up? And do we line up in a way that's beneficial and healthy for both of us? And then the last one is, and I say it's last but never ever least, is sexual intimacy. Because sexual intimacy is so important. And it's not just about sex. It's not the act of sex, although some parts of that go into that category. But it is when we think about our sexual energy, our drive, our libido, the type of sex that we want to have, the type of physical intimacy that we want to have. Am I a person who I always want you touching me? Our legs got to be touching. Our feet have to touch in the bed. I'm reaching over to you in the car. You set me on fire. We are constantly making love multiple times a week. If I don't get it, then I'm going to feel disconnected or that something is wrong. Part of that may even tie into the emotional intimacy. How I express myself to you is through our sexual or our physical relationship. You know, if that's important to you, then having a partner who says, I could really take or leave sex. No sexual energy. If we have sex like once a month, and I can maybe try to get my mind right for it if you want to. No funny stuff. Can we just kind of keep it like really simple? And you're a person who says, I want to have fun. Sex is tied to my recreation. Like, let's keep it spicy. Let's try some things. Can I open up a drawer? And you're like, no, I'd rather not. And like, how much longer are we gonna, right?
Or going back to something you said earlier, maybe they even shame you for it.
Oh, come on. You want to do what? Where did you? I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'm not sure how I feel about you. I'm questioning me, the idea that you would even ask me to or not to, right? And we get into all of that in relationship. And so when you think about choosing partners, do you first know who you are and what you need? And are you choosing partners based upon that? Or do you set all of that aside in a relationship and look at that person as some objectified thing that says, I like how they look, or I like how they talk, or I like who they attract, or I like who others like them to be? And do you say, I want them, with no regard for how they fit with you, and more importantly, with your forever, if that's what you're saying that you want?
Oh my God, I love that breakdown so much. So now my follow-up question is, what if you've done that work, you find somebody and they do, that you're all really aligned on all these versions of the compatibility, but then over time, one or both of you end up changing. And so let's say, for instance, like when I'm just going to share something, when I first met my husband, he was 24, so his sexual drive was through the roof. So he was like everywhere all the time, multiple times a day, you know, and now we've been together for 23 years, so now we're in our 40s. It's changed. Now, thankfully, we've both changed, so we're now still compatible, but what if one of you doesn't?
Well, the thing is, if you wake up one day and it's changed down the line, then what I say is that you both made the mistake of not being plugged and present in your relationship constantly. So you want to learn that as a behavior, so that as you make the correction, it never happens again. Most things don't just change overnight, right? It is a range. We lost the job, and so I feel a certain way about losing the job. And over the next few days, and over the next few weeks, and over the next few months, and over the next few years, things continue to change. It doesn't just go from this to this unless there's a traumatic event. And if there's a traumatic event, say there was a bank robbery or there was a flood and now I have no business to go back to, we're still in that experience together. So what I would be curious about is what was happening with the two of you in that experience together that you weren't going through it together. Sometimes we're going through it, but we're parallel. So we're not talking. I'm not supporting you. I don't know where you are in your thoughts. You're not even communicating that you're changing. So there is no adjusting in our relationship that can be had. The key is, as our relationship changes and evolves, is it changing and evolving in such a way that that is still the container that allows both of our needs to be met? And so that is a constant series of conversations. I always tell people, never ever think you know who your partner is. You knew who they were. Even tonight, when you sit with Tom, he has had experiences all day long that have shaped who he is now. Right? And if you don't continue to be curious about your partner, if you don't continue to ask questions, if you don't continue to share, if you don't continue to participate, you will look one day and recognize, you're so far over there. Wait a minute, how are you over there and I'm over here? How did we get here? And so that constant evolution, that constant growth, the key is to make sure that we're growing into each other and into our relationship and not away. And you also have to recognize that as relationships change, you don't always have to panic. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong. Sometimes there's something right. Sometimes there are seasons of what gets prioritized in relationships and what becomes less of a priority. In our 20s, we have time to swing from the chandeliers. We're not responsible for businesses and tons of money and people and families and all of these things. We've got nothing but time. But when we're 40 something, where we are in our lives, where we are in our careers, where we are in our goals, where we are in our investments and resources and responsibilities look different. And so what we may be oriented to may look different. And sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean that we want those things any less. They're just less of a priority. And so for some couples, they may say, listen, we used to do it multiple times a day, anywhere, anytime, but now we can't because we got people watching, or our reputations are on the line, or I got 1,000 calls I got to make. It doesn't mean that I want you any less, though. And I will have couples to go, okay, that's fine. We might only do it once a week, but as long as I know you still want me. And I literally will have, heck, my own husband sometimes will go, hey, babe, you know, I would just want to tear your clothes off, right? Yes, thank you. I would like to tear yours off too. Okay, back to the kids. Okay, so 7 + 2, right? And so what you want to be mindful of is, are we still connected? Is the intimacy still there? Is the desire still there? Is the investment still there? Are we still there? And if not, again, don't panic. It's a problem in need of a solution. What do we need to do in order to get us to where we want to be? And so then we look at that as a problem with an end destination. This is where we are. This is where we want to be. What steps would it take to get us there? And so we can U-turn anytime we want to. We can speed up, we can slow down, we can put the brakes on, we can reprioritize. And if we look up and go, no, I'd actually like to have sex with you at least 5 times a week. Ooh, okay, well, that's a tall order when we're having sex 5 times a year right now, but what would it take for us to make that happen? Oh, well, I'm going to have to shift some things at the office. Yeah, well, me too. I'll have to shift some things. Okay, and we'll have to spend a little bit more time with each other, and we'll have to kind of carve out this and do that. And then all of a sudden, we are actively doing what it takes to find ourselves where we want to be. The behavior part is really, really the challenge, because that's where the real work and investment has to be done.
Oh, I love that. These little stepping stones,
yes,
instead of just trying to jump to where you think you want to be.
You won't get there, and or you won't stay there. It has to be consistency. That consistency over time is the key.
Yeah. So what questions can you start to ask over the time? Because going back to your point of, there can be a moment where there's never a blink. Right? I blinked and all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But it does feel like that when you're busy and you're driven, or you've just got the kids, or you've got a business, like, you know, you're on a fitness journey, no matter what it is, you become very focused on that thing that you're trying to achieve. And so you end up over time, like you were saying, kind of starting to bifurcate.
Yeah.
What are the questions people can even ask each other along that way to make sure that you keep checking in with each other?
Yeah. First and foremost, I always say you have to start with asking each other the hard question, which is, do we feel like we have honesty between us? Do you feel like you can be honest with me? Because when we're going to talk about some hard stuff, and a lot of couples don't have the space in their relationship to talk about the hard stuff, so we placate each other. I'm just going to tell you what you want to feel happy, or so that we don't argue. You're going to become defensive. This is going to become a thing. Your anxiety is going to make this hard. I'm just going to tell you what you want to hear so we can keep it moving. Right. We're going to go along to get along, but then what we're sitting in is something that neither of us are really happy with. So first and foremost, it's, do we have the space to have some really uncomfortable conversations potentially? And if we don't have the space, then what would it take to create it? Well, I'm going to need to know that you're not going to yell, or you're not going to cuss, or I'm going to need your undivided attention, or I'm going to need to feel like it's not the middle, you need my attention in the middle of the day when I've got a lot of meetings. So we create the ground rules for the uncomfortable potentially conversation. And then it is, I want to talk about how we're feeling. I want to talk about where you see us at. And it's okay if really you looked up one day and I don't feel as close, or I don't feel as desirable, or I don't feel as needed by you. Or sometimes we don't focus on where we are or where we were, but we focus on where we'd like to be. Tell me how you would like to experience me now. Are you feeling like you experience me in the ways that you want to? Are you having the kind of fun with me that you want to have? Do you feel like I'm as present for you as you wish that I was? Where do you want us to be a year from now? And is that in an ideal situation? Tell me about the fantasy version of our relationship. That's a great one. Mm-hmm. Tell me about the fantasy of us that you dream of. And do you feel like we're headed in that direction? Or is that something that it would be nice, but like that's just not us? And what would it take for us to incorporate that to actually get there? Because most of us want to be one of the most important things, if not the most important things, to our partner. We want our partner to long for us and to yearn for us and to feel all the feels about us and light up when they talk about us and all of those things, right? So it becomes, what would it take for you to experience me like this? And don't expect to necessarily get the answer right then, because these are not the kind of conversations that we have, even with ourselves. These are not things we really think about. So if your partner goes, I don't know. And if they're not used to touching those, this is where we get back into men not knowing how to do this. Sometimes we have to have patience for them to struggle and grapple with that. So if they hit you with something that's kind of like, well, that was pretty lackluster. That was a pretty simple answer. And sometimes you may be disappointed because they'll go, well, babe, that's all I got. Like, what else do you want? I'm happy. Like, you take care of everything. You do all this stuff. You make me happy. Like, what else do you want? Then recognize and believe them and understand that it may be your yearning and your need that you need to be expressing, and not trying to pull something out of them that's not there. So if you go, that's all you got, then recognize, okay, I have an expectation or something that I'm wanting to hear or to know or to experience. So then don't talk about them, talk about you. Well, babe, I guess what I'm really wanting is, I'm really wanting to know, like, do you still desire me? Do you want to spend more time with me? And if you're asking those questions, also understand where they orient from. Do you really want to know if he wants to spend more time with you, or do you want to spend more time with him? And then we can just get to, now we have a destination. Babe, I'd really like to spend more time with you. So over the next month or the next 3 months or the next year, what would it take for us to have at least 3 days a month with each other, where it's just us, where we put the phones down and we just do cool stuff, or we just sleep in, or whatever it is that you desire. But you have to get connected to your picture. You have to get connected to, what is the fantasy that I'm yearning to live, that I'm actually waking up every day trying to push my world towards, and I may not even realize it, which is why I yell at people, which is why I'm passive aggressive, which is why I'm a little snarky, which is why I'm a little irritated, which is why I'm a little disappointed, which is why I feel unappreciated or unloved or unworthy or unmotivated or any because what I'm doing is actually doing things that go away from the experiences that I want to have? What is it going to take for me to get in clear focus and then communicate clearly in focus to my partner? This is the forever that I'm trying to build, and I want you to be the co-builder in this with me.
I love that, and I love what you were saying about is it what you're looking for them to answer, or is it actually a need that you have that you're trying not to? Because I think a lot of us have been, I wouldn't say punished, but maybe that's the right word, in speaking our needs.
Yeah.
And I have in the past been guilty of trying to position a question in a way for my husband. He's like, are you trying to tell me a need that you have? Now, he just calls me on it because we've been together for so long and he knows me very well. And he's like, I feel like you're trying to tell me something right now. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, yes. Because I slip into even old habits of being that people pleaser, doesn't want to rustle any feathers. So instead of rustling feathers and speaking up and saying what I need, I put the questions in a way that I'm trying to pull things out. But I love that you just like that pivot of just understanding what that is and your the reasoning of why you're asking, and maybe you're trying to speak a need. I love that. And I've actually heard you say, be careful of, I think you call it the one-way compatibility.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And knowing also that people have the ability to put their feathers back in place. That feathers don't have to be perfectly coiffed all the time, right? Wind, water, environment ruffles feathers. And so our people that we love have the bandwidth to have their feathers ruffled and to be okay. So it's okay as long as it's not from a place of disrespect or ill intention or weaponizing information. It's okay to say, this is the experience that I'm wanting. I want to hear you say that you want me. Right? Oftentimes as women, we go back to that whole romantic thing, is that I don't want to have to tell you. I want you to just know. If I tell you, then it doesn't mean the same as you saying it spontaneously. And I have to go, yeah, but you have to know that just because they're not saying it doesn't mean they're not thinking it or they're not feeling it. That's the gift part. That's the internal part that you're trying to get access to. So you may have to ask the question in order to get the experience that you want.
What up, homie? I got something free and new to share with you right now. How often are you visited by that negative voice in your head telling you that you're not smart enough, that you're not good enough, experienced enough, not fill in the blank? One of the most powerful things you can learn to do in life is to turn that negative voice into your bestie. And I want to teach you how to do that and so much more in my 4 steps to becoming confident workshop. And guys, the most amazing thing is you can actually register for completely free for this workshop. So click the link on your screen and I'll see you on the inside.
Right? That part becomes so important. The one-way compatibility thing, though, to go back to that, is recognizing that just because we're compatible with some people doesn't mean that they're compatible with us. Right? Compatibility is about how we fit. And the easiest way to say that is, I remember when I was a kid, it had to be maybe like preschool. I don't even know how my brain recognizes this, but I had like this little ball that was full of shapes, and it was the way that you learn the shapes. You turn it and you put the shape into the appropriate shape. And every so often, some of the shapes would go in, right? The circle would fit into the square. The triangle would fit into the star. But that didn't necessarily mean that that was the appropriate shape. That didn't mean that that was actually supposed to be there. So when we think about compatibility, we have to know that one-way compatibility is a very interesting thing, because just because you fit with me in my life doesn't mean I fit with you. It's very interesting.
Yeah, God, it's super powerful, because everything that we're talking about, we're really saying, are they compatible to you? The reason why I really wanted to start with, who's compatible to us or for us, who's right for us, is because of often we find ourselves molding ourselves into being someone that we don't necessarily want to be in order to fit somebody else's mold. But now, having identified who is compatible to you, it doesn't mean it works the other way. And being very aware that just doing all this work doesn't mean then they're going to be the perfect partner for you.
Yeah, and having to decide too, are they compatible with me, meaning who I am at my core, what I need in order for my future to be fulfilled? Or are they compatible with the dream and I'm willing to sacrifice myself? I'm willing to silence my own needs in order to have them. Are they compatible with my fantasy, Or are they compatible with the reality of who and what I need in order to live my very best life and for them to live theirs? Oftentimes that's the thing. It's like, oh, I just want you. I just want you so bad, and I want you to want me. Whatever we have to do to make this work. You know, I call it the struggle love. A lot of folks, oh, child, please. They're just riding this struggle. And it's like, whatever we have to do to stay together, whatever. If we got to fight regularly, if we have to ignore the parts of me that I need, if I have to let go of this intimacy, if I have to give up friends for your comfort, if I have to stop doing all the things that make me feel like myself, if that gives me you, then I choose you. That's not a way to live, not sustainably anyway. That is the thing that allows us to slowly die, and we wake up one day and go, I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't even know what I like anymore. I don't even know what makes me happy anymore. I don't even know if I feel anything anymore. And oftentimes we don't, because we've had to turn off those parts of ourselves in order to survive the situation that we're choosing. Because if you actually had to feel the sadness and the frustration and the longing and the abandonment of yourself and the abandonment of your actual life that you should be living, it would be horrible. So instead, we just sit and stay focused. But I love you, but I got you, but you're happy, you're thriving, you're content. And usually they're not either, because they're not getting our best.
I've heard you say love doesn't hurt. Explain that to me.
Listen. You cannot be doing the same thing at the same time. Love is not painful by definition. Enduring something for love is painful. Enduring something in the hopes of getting love is painful. Enduring things to have the potential down the road for love is what's painful. Abandoning yourself in the hopes of receiving love, right? The things that we do are often like the admission ticket, the cost in the hopes of getting love. But here's the thing. Love is all around you. It is, are you choosing love, or are you choosing who you want to perform something that feels like love for you? They are very different things, and love doesn't hurt. So if you're sitting in a relationship with somebody who you're sad, who you feel lonely, who doesn't listen to you, who you feel unseen or unworthy with, that is not love. That's not even you loving yourself. And so we have to be very clear about what love is and what love isn't. And we have to ask ourselves more than anything, am I committed to an experience that I want? No matter what, am I prioritizing that experience? Am I prioritizing choosing people who want that experience? Am I prioritizing people who are living that experience, who are invested in that experience, who are creating that experience? Or am I committed to the potential to have that experience? Or even more often, am I committed without even realizing it to the experiences that will never create love, but this is what I believe I'm deserving of? We do that so often.
So what do you think in situations then when somebody says, let's say they've deceived you and they've maybe cheated on you, and they're like, oh, I love you and this was just a mistake. That love, that can be very confusing, because it can really obviously hurt and deceive and your trust is broken, but then they're still saying, I love you.
Well, you know, I think infidelity is very different. And again, it goes back to us not understanding how things happen. It is absolutely possible for me to love you and to make selfish choices that take care of me that are going to hurt you. I can love you, but do acts that will not be loving acts that wound you. And so when somebody says, yes, I cheated, I made a bad choice, and usually they don't say I made a bad choice, they say I made a mistake. No, you didn't make a mistake. You did absolutely what you wanted to do in that moment with no regard for what this consequence would be, or you thought, even if this happens, we'll still be able to figure it out, and whatever the consequences are that come, I can deal with that. right? So we have to be very clear on that.
Yeah, can you actually just differentiate? I love this, the difference between a mistake then and a bad choice.
Yeah, a mistake is like, I did one thing thinking that something was going to happen that didn't happen, right? I made a mistake, like I walked across the carpet and accidentally got my heel stuck in the carpet and I fell. I made the mistake of walking in the wrong place. I couldn't have calculated what was going to happen. I wasn't expecting a particular outcome. Me cheating is a bad choice in that it causes negative consequences in my relationship. But I already knew what those consequences had the potential to be. I knew exactly what it was that I was doing. It is me prioritizing one need over another. In that moment, I was choosing to feel desired. In that moment, I was choosing the lust that I felt for that person. In that moment, I was choosing the excitement that came with that. It is the way that we prioritize feelings. And oftentimes people wind up cheating because they have not done the work to understand what their own unmet needs are. And then they're no match for those needs to have the potential to get met in a potential situation. So if I have really unmet needs around being needed or being abandoned or being less than or unworthy, and that's a really intense need that sits in me as a wound, and then someone comes in and makes me feel really desired, or that they really need me and don't want to be without me, all of a sudden that hole gets filled by that need. And so I reprioritize. That need is stronger in that moment than commitment. That need is stronger in that moment than love. That need is screaming the loudest, and that's the need that needs to be filled, because that's going to give me relief. I'll deal with the guilt and shame and all of that later on, if I ever have to.
And what's the difference then between making the wrong choice, I was about to say mistake, but making the wrong choice, and then actually sincerely being sorry for it and making a change, versus then somebody who then maybe love bombs you because they've done this and they're trying to bring you back into that relationship? Where can we start to identify what's authentic? And then also, is there some sort of guide that you suggest on either rebuilding trust or making a decision to exit that relationship?
Yeah, well, love bombing is kind of different. Love bombing is a technique that people use in order to isolate you. When you first start dating, they act like you are the best thing since sliced bread. They can't get enough of you. They are all about you in ways that are so suffocating that you almost can't breathe, as a means for them to say, this is all that you need. I'm going to be everything for you. I need you to drop everything that you're doing to come over here. And then once I have you isolated, then I'm going to show you the real me. That's different. But what often happens in the honeymoon stages after infidelity is that the partner tries to step up to hit every single point that they believe, now we're back to the representative, every single point that they believe they need to hit that will make you happy. Anything they've ever heard you talk about, they want to fulfill it. You talked about trips for 20 years. Now you're going on 5 trips. They talked about dinner every weekend. Now they're taking you to dinner every night. You talked about, why won't you ever buy me gifts? They're bringing you a gift home every day. They're trying to do things in this reparation or reparative stage in order to get you back to a space that says, fine, I'll forgive you. I'll reinvest. I will recommit. I will not leave you. So we're back to the statistics now, right? That probability. I'm going to hit all the things in order to make you now tell yourself a story, whatever story you have to tell yourself that's going to make you comfortable with staying and staying reinvested in our relationship. The problem with that is that it never addresses the issue that led the person to cheat. We get so caught up in the behavior, you cheated on me. You violated our relationship. We never get focused on the why. What was the need that was at the bottom of that fundamentally that made you willing to sacrifice all of this? Because even if we stay together, we will never be the same again. And now we have a choice. Will we never be the same again and be less than who we were, but continue on in relationship? Or will we figure out the why and heal that So now we can have the relationship that we fantasized about and that maybe we, or at least I, thought that we were in. And so the cheating in and of itself is not the issue. It is what drove the person to cheat. Do they have an understanding of that? Have they resolved that? Are they aware of it? How will they manage that as they go forward? How will they communicate with you in ways that make you feel safe and let you know with confidence that the cheating will never happen again? Because really, the cheating is a coping strategy. The cheating is what they do as a result of having the need. What do we do about the need? And if they can't give you a clear answer and the two of you work on a clear plan that holds them accountable, that they have to take the lead on, they have to be responsible for, they have to show and prove constantly that they are managing that and they are aware of that, then it's destined to happen over and over because that need will remain unfulfilled.
So what about being the person maybe that has had them been cheated on? Mm-hmm. There's always that trust element where I think a lot of people end up second guessing themselves again because maybe there were signs that they ignored. And then there's a problem, at least from what I hear from my audience, where it's like they don't either know how to trust themselves again to either recognize the signs, or they leave that relationship and they no longer can trust anybody.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I read a comment on one of my episodes the other day, which, guys, by the way, I read every comment, so please always comment. I do love them. One person replied and they're like, oh, so the takeaway is to just never trust anybody, and that way you won't get hurt.
Oh no, it's don't put your trust in the wrong people. Don't put your trust in people who are not trustworthy. The problem though is that what we do when we go into the next relationship is that we project what we experienced. Right, and I was laughing about some things that I saw on social media, and it was like laughing to keep from crying because these two young women were having a conversation about married men and about the number of married men who are just out here just humiliating their wives in the streets with all of these women that they're dealing with. And they were like, you know, these men are tricking these women off. Yeah, men are really garbage. I feel sorry for their wives. And that's why I won't get married one day maybe, but no time soon. And so everybody was talking about the men and everybody was talking about the wives. But I was really concerned about what that means for the woman who has that experience over and over, who chooses that life over and over, because that is what bakes in her core belief about men. And it's not every man, it's the men that she's choosing. So then if and when she finally does decide to try to get married later on, she winds up bringing all that into the relationship and believing that this is who he is because of all the men that she chose. And so it becomes very important for us to recognize that when somebody cheats, it's not necessarily about us. It is about them. But we have to be aware, how did I navigate their cheating? What did I learn about myself, about my boundaries, about how I show up, about how I advocate for me? What did I learn about my decision making? What did I learn about my own needs? How do I feel about the choice that I make, whether I choose to stay, whether I choose to go? How do I then participate in my relationship and where we go from here? And so it's really about realizing that your relationships are constantly reflecting back to you where you are. What was happening with my partner prior to this? Is this the first instance of them cheating? What didn't I know? What does that tell me about our relationship? What does that tell me about how they feel like they can communicate, about what they will communicate, about the space that we make for communication? Have we even ever had conversations around infidelity? Have we had conversations about what our rules would be for how we manage attraction to other people? Do we even talk about the reality that we may find ourselves attracted to other people? How do we demystify that? How do we take some of the energy and the secrecy and all the excitement away from that by being able to bring that to say, hey, listen, I'm feeling this way about somebody. Whoa, okay. Well, let's talk about that. Why are you feeling that? What is it about that person or about the dynamic between the two of you? Is that something that's missing here in our relationship? Is that something that's unfulfilled in you? Is that something that we need to address here within our relationship? And the minute that you start to make these actual problems that have the ability to be solved, as opposed to dealing with the behavior, everything changes. Everything changes.
God, you just hit me with those questions. How many people do you think are honest about finding other people attractive when you're in a relationship? And then how personally would you feel, Spirit, if your husband came and said that to you, like, I'm really finding this other person attractive? If you're confident, then maybe you're able to sit with your partner and say, oh, well, what is it that maybe we're missing? Like, or maybe it's, you know, oh, cool, okay, you find her hot. Like, my husband, like, because I really want, like, a nice firm booty. Like, I'm always looking at other women's asses, and I'm just like, babe, what do you think about her ass? And I have zero jealousy or anything like that. But I've worked really hard on making sure that I build my confidence. And so I could just imagine, though, in a relationship where maybe you don't feel great, or maybe your relationship is a little fractured, if you had your partner coming to say to you, like, hey, I really find her ass attractive, that could potentially be a trigger for you and an insecurity.
Yeah. See, to me, that's where the work is, though. That's what tells me what work I have to do. That's my relationship giving me an opportunity to heal. Now, is it going to feel good if I'm broken, or if I feel inadequate, or if that's like a pressure point for me? No. But what am I doing about the pressure point before that moment so we don't have those issues, right? And then am I projecting that onto my partner because I feel insecure? Now I'm mad at you that you are having a healthy response. Like, am I the only person ever for the rest of our lives that you're going to be attracted to? I would be a fool to think that. Relationships and being in relationship don't mean that you're never going to be attracted to someone else. It means you're going to manage that attraction in healthy ways that prioritize your relationship and honor the commitments that you make. That doesn't mean I'm never going to find you sexually attractive, or I'm not going to be intellectually stimulated by someone, or I'm not going to be spiritually stimulated by someone, or I'm not going to enjoy doing these activities with someone else. It simply means that there is a time and a place for that, and those times and places will never sit in the same space as the times and places and spaces and honor that I give to my primary relationship. So it wouldn't bother me if my husband comes and goes, damn, something about her is just really, like, we have a really strong chemistry. Well, that's kind of science. You know, you're going to be feeling that for other people. Do you want to act on it is the question. And my husband will tell you 20,000 times over, babe, what we have here is so incredible. We've worked for this. Blood, sweat, and tears have sacrificed and poured into this, and what we know about each other and how we live into each other. That moment is not worth losing that. Even if we stay together, losing what it is, changing it by that choice is not worth it. And so that's where you want to be in a relationship. I really believe it's not about fooling yourself into believing that your partner will never be drawn to anybody else. And it doesn't mean that them being drawn to anybody else is always sexual, or that they want to act it out sexually. It's not always those things. But it is about recognizing, do we prioritize our relationship in such a way that to honor this is not an obligation. It's not an obligation. It is a want. Right? Like, in the same way, my husband, look at you, look at us. We could go out if we wanted to today and go pick up whoever we want to today. There is no doubt in my mind that we couldn't pick something up out there in these streets if we wanted to, right? But there's a reason that we don't want to, right? And it's not even an option. It's not something that's like, oh, I got to work hard not to look. Oh, I got to work hard not to. It is, yeah, he's really handsome. Okay, so as you were saying, right? And there's a reason for that. It's not something that you struggle with. It is because the quality of what you built means so much to you that anything else is obsolete.
I love that so much, and that idea is really, I think, helped me build my confidence instead of my insecurity, because in thinking through, okay, there's what, 7.5 billion people in the world. Are you really thinking that you're the only one that's going to be either your partner's going to be attracted to?
Come on, Lisa. Come on.
And I find it even more romantic, though, Spirit, to think that there's 7.5 billion people, and yet we choose each other. Like, knowing that I can find maybe a billion other people more attractive, or that he can find a billion people more attractive, attractive than me, like
Yes.
more attractive, not even I'm saying on the same level.
Yes.
But yet, in spite of all of that, we choose to spend our life with each other.
Yes.
That to me is actually more romantic, harder, and more valuable.
Yeah, because I think when you recognize that your relationship, that your presence and your commitment and your giving in a relationship is a gift that you give to your partner and to yourself every day. Like when you think about how tremendous that you choose each other every day, that what you have means so much to you every day, that is a gift. And when you can position yourself in such a way that says, I want to make sure that that remains. I want to make sure that that grows. What can I do to even intensify that? Right? When that becomes the goal, your relationship just exponentially continues to get better. But it has to be something that you're oriented to. The quality of your relationship is something that you have to be oriented to. And if the quality of your relationship is not what you want it to be, then what actively do you and they have to be doing simultaneously and with consistency to get it to that place? And those are questions that you have to be asking. You can't just be in a relationship. You can't just be doing relationship. That's a verb. That's an action. And part of that action means we have to have a plan. Otherwise, we are just navigating, making the mistakes, making the bad choices. How invested are you in creating and bringing to fruition the fantasy that you say you want to be your reality?
I love that. And as you're looking at the quality of your relationship that you're currently in, where does like contempt and resentment, they start to build over time? I don't think people even sometimes realize they have contempt for their partner or resentment.
For sure.
Whether it's they're cheating and now you're forgiving them and going back to that relationship and you're secretly just holding something against them, or just contempt is just built over time.
Yeah. And I think it's important to recognize when you haven't forgiven somebody in that space. There's a difference between I'm going back to you and I've actually forgiven you. And you can sit in relationship with somebody and never forgive them. You can also have a really good relationship and say, I still haven't forgiven you for that. Resentment and contempt is something different. That is disdain. That is a repulsion. That is it is repelling me. Instead of me being drawn to you, it is repelling me from you. And so I think it's really important for us in my relationship personally, there's no room for that. And so we have set really firm ground rules very early in our relationship. And then I'm constantly learning. I tell my clients all the time, you're a gift that you give to me because I learn how not to do certain things. I'm constantly reminded how it's not the big things that fracture relationships. It's the little splinters over time that weaken it, and then it doesn't have the foundation to stay standing, right? Those things are important. And so for us, we have things like, for example, we have the 90-day rule. We do not bring up things with each other after 90 days. And we've been this way for decades now, right? So it does two things. One, it means I'm not keeping a running list of all of the offenses in our relationship, because it's really not fair. If I want to be with you forever, am I really going to hold you to the things you did to me in our 20s and our 30s, and now we're in our 40s, moving towards our 50s? I'm still going to be mad at you about those things. How does that hold you hostage? How does that hold me hostage? And how does that stifle our relationship? But it also holds us accountable to working through the problems. If I'm feeling something, I need to say it. And if I can't say it today because I need time to work on it or to process it or to make it make sense, or even to just let some of the intensity of the sting and the emotions kind of settle before I talk about it, then we have the place and the space. We'll work on that. But we will not go back to what happened 6 months ago. I will not defend myself for something that I said 2 years ago. I will not weaponize something against you that happened 5 years ago. Because what is the growth in that? But even more importantly, what can you do about that? And oftentimes when we do that, that's a coping strategy that we don't even realize. What we're trying to do is get something else. And so the real goal is to focus on what we want now. You're bringing that up for what in this moment. We're back to needs. You said that in order to have me think or feel or do what now. So then don't talk to me about what happened then. Talk to me about what you're needing now. What is it that you want to hear from me? What is it that you need to know from me? Let's get into what you need now, because that's affecting where you're trying to go. Now we're back to your picture. What is the story that you're telling yourself, that you're using that to illustrate or demonstrate or remind or hold on to? For what reason? And so oftentimes we'll bring up old transgressions because we want to let them know, I haven't forgotten, because we want to make sure they know that we're still on guard, that we're still watching, we're still suspicious, I still don't trust you, right? But you want to let them know that for what reason? Really, you want to let them know that so that they don't do it again. So instead of talking about what you did to me, how do we talk about, how do I know with certainty that you won't do that to me again? Do you think about what you did to me? Do you know how it affects me? Do you know what my struggles are now? Do you know how this is affecting our relationship? Do you know what my feelings are? The embarrassment or the shame or the lack of worth? Do you know how this is causing me to feel? And if you do know, why aren't you responding to me in a way that is going to heal that? We get so caught up in the things and the transgressions and the offenses that we never get to the things that will make our relationships better. We never get to the things that will heal us. We never get to the things that will cause us to actually turn the fantasies of relationships that we desire into reality. And oftentimes it's because we never learned how. We don't know how to do it.
Okay, so the 90-day rule, that was so good. I'm so implementing that. So the 90-day rule, what else can we do?
You know, I think it's about being intentional about the kind of relationship that you want, right? So I think about some of our rules, which now they don't seem like rules. They're just ways that we do things. But since we're having this conversation, I think we have uniquely between us 2 kisses. So if you ever see me in the streets, you'll notice that my husband and I, we always kiss each other twice. And it came out of a joke. He used to tell me that his grandfather, when his grandmother was upset, she would always kind of put him out or he would leave. And when he came back, he would know, hey, I have to kiss you, but I have to kiss you more than once, because he was kind of superstitious. He believed that something bad would happen if he didn't give her these 2 kisses. So every time my husband leaves, I'm always like, hey, 1 kiss because you love me, and then 1 for luck. Right? So we have these 2 kisses. I think the other thing, though, it becomes about what kinds of things will help us to create the relationship that we want. Right? So part of also about the kisses for us, for example, I never wanted us to lose the intimacy in our relationship. It's so important, but it's so easy to do. You get lost in the kids, you get lost in work, you get lost in parents and life and business and all of that. And so I always wanted us to make sure that we never leave the house without kissing each other goodbye. Right? We just absolutely have to, because life, you get called, okay, I gotta go, I gotta run. And so it was kind of like, okay, so you got to kiss me before you leave. I got to kiss you before I leave. And we would have days where we would jump in the car, get halfway down the street, and the other person will see the phone and go, oh my gosh, I forgot. Okay. Hey. Oh, where are you? Halfway down the street. Oh, so you left the house. Oh, so you're not gonna, I'm turning around now. Right? And in the moment, it seems so trivial that most people would go, well, why don't you just, they're already gone. Like, why not wait until the next time? Because the next time it's just as likely to happen. And then all of a sudden it didn't happen twice. It happened every day this week. And then it happened every day this month. And all of a sudden we no longer kiss. We no longer have the things where we said intimacy and physical connection was important to us because we made excuses. We prioritize this. They'll understand. I'll get it right next time. It is the consistency. It is the things that you do over and over. We also have what we call the 30-second hug, and I make this face. It drives me crazy because it has become the bane of my existence. We implemented it really early in our relationship. It was about being able to reconnect. Right? And if you do something long enough, there is a moment like when you're frustrated with each other that if you have physical connection, you cannot stay mad at a person. So somewhere around 15 seconds, 20 seconds in, you can feel your bodies kind of melt into each other and go, And it just helps you get centered. So whenever we are feeling disconnected, one of us has the right to be able to ask for the 30-second hug no matter what. And it's kind of like, I don't want to. I'm usually the one that doesn't want to.
Interesting.
Yes,
why is that?
because I am, when it comes to fight, flight, or freeze, I am fight. I am always in that space that the first thing that I want to do is pull away. That is my nature. And so when I get worked up, it is, give me a second.
The last thing you want is to hug.
Yes.
Yeah.
And my husband will go, oh, bring it in, bring it. And I'm like, give me a second. He's like, no. Are you going to break the rule? Are you going to be the one that breaks the rule? And it's like, fine, I'm going to hug you.
Now, do you still do it knowing that it's the right thing to do for your marriage? Because
Absolutely.
as you know, obviously tongue-in-cheek joking about it's the bane of your existence.
Yes.
Where's that fine line between, okay, but I do it because I know it actually works, versus I really freaking hate this, I wish we would stop, and now you're building resentment for your husband,
no.
where he makes you hug him.
Yeah, no, it's not that at all. I don't hate it. It is, what I have learned is that usually what is the hardest to do in a moment is what's needed the most. And if you are a person who is used to pulling away, if you are a person who's hyper independent, if you're a person who's experienced trauma or who has come to believe when the chips are down, all I got is me. If you're that person, then relying on somebody or having them see you vulnerable or having them in that space of intimacy with you in places where you're triggered can be very difficult. So what I know is when it is the hardest to do something, if it's hard for me to say I love you, then you probably need to hear it, and I probably need to be connecting to the love that I feel for you in this moment. If I don't want to, why? Because what is it that I want to be feeling? And then that's a conversation. I want to be mad at you. I want to feel disdain for you. I want to resent you. Why do I want to resent you? And do I want to resent you, or do I want you to be different? I'm resenting you because you're hurting me. So do I want to resent you, or do I want you to stop hurting me? Okay, so now how do I put down the resentment? Because the hurt is the problem that needs the solution. You have to be committed to the future that you say that you want. And it's not enough for it to just be in your head as the fantasy. It has to be actionable. It has to be behavioral. And it has to be consistent.
My girl, I literally could sit here and just talk to you forever. I have absolutely loved this. Where can people find you and all the amazing things that you're up to?
Well, we're doing a lot of stuff. You know, mental health is my jam. Wherever I can do it is where I'm doing it. I am doing this on every social media platform all over the place. Like wherever we can make this relatable and wherever we can get the information out to the people, that is always where you'll find me. So talk to spirit. I always say if you think like, gosh, I really need to talk to spirit, that's how you find me. Talk the number 2 spirit. Talk to spirit everywhere. You'll always find me.
Keep watching to learn the warning signs that your relationship actually won't last. Do you see a future with me? Whew. Guys, I get it. This is one of those questions where really they've kind of got 3 answers. Yes, no, or I'm not sure. So let's cover all of those. All right, so let's do the yes. All right, great. Now, if you see a future with them, you can keep going. If they say no, what does that mean? Like, you actually want the truth, right? The idea of asking this is to always get the truth. So what if they say no? The great news is the whole point is to get to the truth. So if they say no, now that's information that is powerful. That's information that you now have to then be able to decide, okay, they don't see a future. Do you see a future with them? Because if you do, and you're pouring yourself into it, and you're giving your all, and you're sacrificing, and you're like overcoming your triggers so that you can start to trust them, and then they say no, all right, well, maybe you guys aren't on the same page. But again, the great news is, I get it's going to sting. I'm not even going to pretend. Yes, it's going to freaking sting. But guys, remember, the whole point is so that you know where they stand. So now at least you have the truth. And now at least you can ask yourself, do I still pour myself into this relationship? Do I still show up like they are the one, even if they don't see a future with me? That's your prerogative. That's why you ask this question. Now, the second part of this, where are you in your relationship? Because the truth is, in my first 5 dates with Tom, we both were just like, this is the best fling ever. We both live in different countries. We're both just very much physically attracted to each other. It's going to be a great summer holiday fling. You know, like this is going to be an amazing story to tell my homies when I go back to England. So if he'd asked me this question on like the 5th day, do you see a future? And I'm like, no. But if he'd asked me that question 4 months later, the answer is, oh my God, yes, I can't imagine a future without you. So please, for the love of God, people, when you ask this question, make sure that you're really assessing where it is in your timeline. Make sure that you're doing it with open ears and the want to actually hear the truth, which means you can't be trapping them. You can't be asking the question like, well, do you see a future with me? Intense pause and stare, right? Like, you want to know the truth for your own sake so that you know how you show up in this relationship and whether it's a relationship you choose to be in. So understand there's going to be different times of your relationship that you're going to be asking this question. One more piece of thing that I'm going to add to this question actually is knowing that not only does your relationship grow and evolve, but you grow and evolve. So imagine I've asked him this question early on, and we both said, nah, neither of us see a future. Okay, great. Now let's imagine that we ask this question either before we get engaged or maybe once we're engaged, right? Because I do think actually it's important to keep asking. Even 20 years in my relationship, I still need to ask my husband, do you still see a future with me? It's important. I don't just want to assume that he does. So asking that question at different parts of your relationship is going to be imperative. Because when you grow, when you change, it will actually be a great way of seeing whether you're moving towards each other or moving away from each other. Now, what do I mean by that? Okay, back to when you first meet, ask the question, maybe you're engaged now, right? And maybe you say, do you see a future with me? And maybe they respond like, of course, like I've just proposed to you. Of course, I can't wait to marry you. Okay, great. Now you've got your answer. You can answer back. Now, let's say you're in your 2nd year of marriage. And you think that you're in love and now you're changing and adapting and maybe you've changed who you are. Real life situation, guys. I married my husband telling him I was going to support him and have 4 children. Well, that didn't quite work out. I have 0 children and my husband has to cook and clean himself. So I changed and evolved. So now imagine that first year. This is going to be hard to say, guys, but that first year where I asked, first year of my marriage, babe, do you see a future with me? And he was like, oh my God, of course, I love you. Like, I see myself with you for the rest of my life. Well, now imagine I'm unaware of the friction of me saying, I don't want children. Imagine a world where I'm unaware of the friction and maybe the resentment he's building over time. When he says, hang on, I married a woman that was going to take care of me, and now I'm with someone who actually doesn't do any of that and doesn't want any kids. So if he turns around and says, I'm not sure, I want to know. I just want to know. I want to know why, and I want to discuss it. Because the most freaking heartbreaking thing, guys, that I hear from so many therapists is when couples come into their therapy session, they sit on the couch. They say more often than not, they know that person, one of these people in the relationship knew the relationship was over years ago. They did something, whether they cheated on them or said something that was, no going back, but something happened. And they kind of inside knew, yeah, this actually was the breaking point. But they decide to stay with each other for like 5, 6, 7, 8 years because they think it's easier than addressing the truth that maybe this is the thing that broke us. My God, it's hard to say, but I want to know. I want to know in real time if there was something that I did that maybe is a potential break in our relationship. Because then I can address it. Because then, now guys, you're not spending the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years of your life with someone that didn't even see a future with you because 7 years ago, you told them you didn't want children or whatever it is, fill in the gap. That's why it is so imperative to keep asking this question. It is so imperative to give your partner space to answer it. And as always, guys, if the answer in this situation is, do you see a future with me? And they say no, if they've already said yes before that, now you just need to take a deep breath, ask them why, and start that open communication without being defensive. What's missing from our sex life that you're afraid to tell me? All right, guys, I'm just going to be honest. The amount of friends and experts and people that I've spoken to about sex all basically say the same thing. So many people get nervous about telling their partner what they want in the bedroom. So many people are worried about being judged. They're going to frown upon it. Are they going to think that I'm weird, quote unquote? Are they going to think differently of me? Is this something that someone's going to judge me on it? Because let's face it, I'm just going to be honest, because that's why I'm here. And that's why you're watching this, right? Because we're fed up of all the freaking BS that is out there in the world. So we're here right now and just calling a spade a spade. I don't want one of my, let's say my dreams or my fetishes to be frowned upon. I don't want to be judged for it. So what ends up happening is, I think so many of us don't say that thing that we really want, because we're so worried about how someone else is going to respond, how they're going to think about us. And so the thing that me and my husband literally laid down from day one is we need to be honest about sex. You have to tell me all the weird shit that you want to do. And I'm going to tell you all the maybe weird shit I want to do. And now it doesn't mean you're going to do it. It just means that you trust each other enough to be honest. And here's the great news, guys. In these moments, by the way, just a little side note, in these moments, this is the moment that you can actually tell if they're going to accept you for you. Because now imagine you've told them. It becomes a stepping stone of trust. I've just told them that. How did they respond? Did they laugh at me? Did they roll their eyes? Or did they go, okay, that sounds interesting. I'm not sure if I want to do it. But did they show respect? Doesn't mean that they want to do it or have to do it or in on it. But did they show you the respect when you said it? Okay, that's number one. And then number two is just reminding yourself that, in fact, when you ask this question, you have to say to your partner, it doesn't mean I'm going to do it. Can we just agree to that? But we have a relationship where we communicate about everything. We have a relationship where you know you can trust me with your most weirdest shit. And I'm never, ever going to tell a damn soul. I'm never, ever going to use it against you. And I'm never, ever going to judge you negatively for it. That's why these types of questions, this question specifically, is so important to be comfortable to ask, as well as be comfortable to tell. That's not even I haven't even addressed, once you do start that discussion, how you start to navigate. Because I don't know about you, again, I'm just going to say it, most of the time, people that I know, women that I know, they want sex less than men. I'm just going to say it, guys. That's the experience that I've had. Now, I'm not saying that's universal, that's just the experience that I've had. So you have this worry, at least with some of the friends that I've spoken to, where if you ask this question, it's like, oh, does that mean I have to have more sex? It's like, let me tell you, if that's your response, maybe there's something you need to address with your partner. Because if you're worried that asking this question means you have to have more sex, maybe it's saying that you don't enjoy sex, which is okay. But here's the amazing thing that I'm going to let you guys in on. Sex is so damn healthy. It's healthy for your relationship. It's healthy for, as a woman, for your hormones. It's healthy for your brain. So never mind the fact that it's just freaking fun as hell. You really do connect with your partner. And then also the other thing, guys, is the one declaration I made to my husband, and I urge you to do this in your relationship. We recognize the importance of sex. That doesn't mean that we're always going to want it. That doesn't mean that we're always going to be aligned. That doesn't mean that I'm always going to be wanting to do what you want or the positions that you want or whatever. But we have to keep talking about it, and we have to agree that bed death, meaning that you don't have sex anymore, is literally poison to a relationship. If you agree to that, okay, great. Now we just agree. And now what you're doing is you're communicating how you make sure bed death doesn't actually happen. Because you have no idea how many people, and sorry, I know I'm screaming a lot, but you have no idea how many people I hear say, oh God, sex again. Or, oh God, well, I have to give it up. Guys, if you're already thinking that, I'm just going to say it. Your relationship's in danger. I'm pausing on purpose. Your relationship is in danger. So I want to encourage this question. I want you to be able to ask it and answer it with freedom, and then navigate and communicate on how much sex you want, what type of sex you want, what's that thing that you really want to do that you're worried that I'm going to judge you on. Give them the space to do it. Give them the space to have that freedom. And even if you're not willing to do it, what you'll realize is that communication brought you closer together. And that's the key. That's the key. If my best mate flirted with you, would you tell me? There's only one answer. Yes. If the answer is no, I can't trust you. And let's face it, guys, if you can't trust your partner, you may as well just break up. I'm going to be that freaking honest. If you can't trust your partner, you may as well break up, because you're always going to be looking over your shoulder. So this one's a nice, easy blanket statement of, if it ain't yes, then I have to break up with you. Guys, I know that these questions are hard, but it is imperative that you ask them. I just want to show you in real time how important it is to ask these questions and how brave it is to ask these questions. So I've actually got a surprise. He has no idea what I'm about to ask him, but I've asked my hubby to come on set. Come here, baby. Which side do you want to stand? All right, stand. He literally has no idea what I'm about to ask him, but it is so imperative.
People do not, they're going to think this is a setup. I swear on my life that I was walking by and I had to go change, I don't want to lie, but I have no idea what's happening right now.
It was so important that I didn't tell him, because what I'm trying to show you guys is in real time how you ask this question and then how you listen. All right, you ready? You should be very tense. It's the questions that we ask each other since we met each other that are very hard. All right.
That we're normally not on account for.
Yes, all right, so babe, what's the worst thing about being with me?
I'll give you the first thing that came to mind, but if I had more time, I might be able to come up with something better. The thing that we always collide over is, even though I know you can steel man my argument, I still feel like you don't get it, that you hide things all the time. And I am so obsessed with efficiency that it drives me crazy. And it just happened this morning. Oh, no. And I was literally like, I had to like woosah my way through.
What was it?
The little hot thing for the plates. Oh. And so I'm like looking all over. I'm like, it's not where it's supposed to be. And I had to find something. So I was like, 22 years in, and we still, because it's a collision of values, and I'm sure that's outside the scope of this video.
But well, no, actually, I actually don't think it's out the side of the scope, because now it becomes, instead of me getting defensive, it's like, but the thing, literally, if I had to answer, in fact, my thing was your messiness. And so what's interesting is, this is literally the thing, after 22 years, he even said that this is a thing that we collide over. Now, it may seem small, but it isn't, guys. Over time, it really does become like, you actually disrespected me. I've asked you not to do this. So, knowing each other.
I was just saying, do you want me to explain a collision of values?
Yeah, please, go for it.
Okay, so a collision of values is when you can steel man the other person's argument, if you guys haven't heard that phrase, meaning in the most generous way possible, you're saying, okay, this is my understanding of why you do this, and they can steel man your argument. And you both agree, you understand my position perfectly, and I still think you're crazy. And so now you're at a collision of values. It's not that you don't understand. It's not even that you haven't gotten to the base issue. You really, really do know where the other person's coming from, but you think that that way of valuing things is incorrect. And so now you're... And
what ends up happening is like, I absolutely think I'm right. Like, how can you function in a messy place and you think you're right? You're like, why on earth would you spend even a moment looking for things? No, that's...
No. You think you're right, but I know I'm right.
See what I have to deal with, guys? But in all honesty, right, this is a conversation in real time that you can see us having. We just did it today. So thank you for being very honest. Obviously, I do know that. I wasn't sure sometimes you come up with other ones, which actually is imperative, guys. You keep asking these questions. Oh, you're about to say there are.
I was just going to say well, I mean, of course, there's other things that we have friction over, but I'd have to really think, like, is there something bigger? That one is the one that comes up the most often, for sure. And I think people will think it's petty and be tempted because it is funny when we describe it. But like when you understand collisions of values are things that they don't go away. And it's something that you really hold at a base fundamental level. So it can be very frustrating. And so we have to have what we refer to as rules of engagement around what is the appropriate way to treat the other person when it is a collision of values. So for instance, I didn't come, yell and scream and say like, I can't believe it, because it's like, I understand her position. I know where she's coming from, even though I disagree. So rather than just constantly getting in a fight about it, you have to find a way to deal with it. Otherwise, it's going to drive you crazy. And so with this, I just had to give up. I'm not going to get that thing because it's not worth me trying to find it because I value efficiency so much. So I have to have like backup plans for what do I use when I can't find the thing that I prefer to use. But when you have those rules of engagement, instead of it being a fight, it's like you go to that next way of handling it.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank
All
you.
right, that it?
Yeah.
All right. Love
Thank you. Love you too.
Bye, everybody. Peace.
Thanks, baby. So there you have it, guys. I literally asked him, now like he said, we said about tidying being messy. That may seem petty, but when you have the same bloody fight for 22 years, it doesn't become petty anymore. It becomes like, is he even hearing me? He, of course, is like, well, like, how many times do I have to tell her? I need that hot plate. I don't want to keep looking for it. Now, what he didn't give me a chance to say is the hot plate was under my laptop because my laptop was getting warm. So actually it was in the same place. It was just under it, so he couldn't see it. But even that, right? It's like, I know him. I do want to help him. I do want our relationship to always improve. And this is one thing that we just keep butting heads on, and that we keep talking about it. We keep asking each other the questions. So we've come up with little mini solutions, little mini ways of doing things. Like at one point I gave him a box, and I basically, because he said, you keep hiding things. Like, I really feel like we've got this house and it's all, you know, you've got your stuff everywhere and I have my stuff, and every time I put my stuff somewhere, it's always messy. And so I feel like I don't have a place. And like, I had to really listen to that. My poor hubby doesn't feel like he's got a place. Like, so I gave him a box. I gave him...
I took my mic off, and then she hid the box. She actually hid the box. I need people to know that.
I can see
this is what I'm dealing with. I literally came back over after taking my microphone out, because I'm like, if she doesn't admit that she hid my box, the box of things for me to have. This is amazing. But you were worth every bit of it.
In all fairness, I just put it in a closet. So that's what he calls hiding.
That is hiding. All right. I'll leave you
love
for
you,
real with that.
baby.
All right, love you too. Peace. Bye, everybody.
So now here's the thing, guys. Another thing. We have been to the point where we couldn't laugh about it like this because it was such a contentious discussion. It was such a contentious thing for us to talk about because we did get to the point where I just felt like he's really fucking disrespecting me. Like, I can't function in a messy place. Like, I need my sanity. I need my clarity. I need to have things, like, I need space. And so every time it kept getting messy, like, I started to really take it personally. And then so did he. So how did we go from being the people that took it personally to now we can giggle and chuckle? And it's because we've spoken about it, we've communicated through everything. We've come up with ideas and strategies, and we keep evolving the idea and strategy. So yes, the box was one of the ideas and strategies. He really liked it, and then we had a big party, and so I threw the box in the closet because I didn't want the box to be out. And then of course what ends up happening is I'm not going to take the box out, and then of course it upset him because he was like, you're fucking hiding my box. So now again, guys, this is something we're still working through. But you understand that we've communicated about it so much that even if we haven't solved it, that's actually a beautiful thing to show. It's not like we've got it perfect. We still haven't solved it. But yet we've been able to communicate time and time again to get past the fact that he thought I was crazy, to get past the fact that I thought he was disrespecting me. Those are moments that could have actually splintered our relationship. It could have actually broken our relationship. But we kept communicating, we keep talking through it. And we keep asking the question because 22 years later in our relationship, I'm still not there yet. But we keep talking, we keep communicating. And as you can see, this one very thing doesn't become a splinter in our relationship. It actually becomes something that brings us together. So it's a hard question to ask, but remember, you want the bloody truth, guys. You want the truth because you are here to improve and then bring that improvement to the relationship. Never freaking forget that. Do you want an independent woman? Guys, this is such an important question to ask because if you're trying to be confident, if you're working hard every single day to get stronger, get more independent, rely less on the people around you and really be the freaking hero of your own life, You want to know if your partner is going to frown upon that. You want to know if your partner is going to try and tear that down. You want to know if your partner actually is on the same wavelength as you. Because let me tell you, I honestly don't see a world that can work where you're with someone that wants someone that's completely dependent on them. Especially if you want to be an independent woman. So this is such an imperative question to ask. Now look, I'm just going to say it, guys. Don't judge them if they say no. Because who are we? In fact, I'm just going to speak for myself. Who the hell am I to tell someone else what they should want? Who am I to dictate what someone should want in a woman? If you want someone that is very dependent on you, go after a woman that wants to depend on you. But if you're a woman who wants to freaking stand up for themselves, if you're a woman who wants to absolutely be able to depend on yourself first, I'm not saying that you shouldn't turn to your partner. God, Jesus, no, I'm not saying that. I turn to my husband all the time. But you better believe I look inwards first. You better believe I am the hero of my own life first. So, does your partner want that type of woman? And then also, I'm just going to say it, as controversial as it is, what type of woman do you want? What type of partner do you want? I'm also saying this for the opposite, right? Do you want a guy that wants an independent woman or a woman that wants an independent woman, whatever your thing is? For some reason, it's become super freaking controversial about talking about independent women and women paying for themselves and women opening their own doors, and should a man open it, and should chivalry still be around, and does that mean that I'm incompetent? And God, we just need to stop. Like honestly, we just need to stop. What type of person do you want to show up to be? And then articulate that to your partner. One of my very close friends, I was having a discussion with her and she was telling me she's single and she was going on a date. They finished their meal, and as the bill comes, the waiter puts the bill down and he looks at her. Now, she's the type of woman, she earns her own money. She pays for her own shit. She does not need someone to help her financially. But she turned around to him and she just said, hey, just so you know, I'm the type of woman, I can take care of myself, but I value it when a man pays for the bill. Okay, I'm not freaking, like, be you and communicate you. Now, what was amazing about this story is the guy turns around and is like, oh my God, thank God you told me that. Because I just went on a date last week and the bill comes, I go to reach for it to pay, and the woman freaked the fuck out. She was like, what, you think I can't afford to pay for my own meal? And so now the poor guy was dumbfounded. He was like, I don't want to offend anyone. I'm the type of guy that wants to take care of a bill. It doesn't mean that you can't, but that's his value system. And so he was saying to her, like, it's my value system. I was brought up, my mum taught me to always pay for a woman's dinner. And so it comes from kindness. It comes from like authenticity. And so he turned around to her and he was like, and so I was so worried. Because of how that woman acted before, I was so worried that in this dinner, if I went to offer to pay, that you would react the same. So instead, I just looked at you. Now, that woman perceived that look as being like, pay for yourself. Do you want to be with someone that's independent? Do you want to be with someone that is codependent? Or do you want to be with someone that now we're calling interdependence? That's an important thing to know before you date someone or to just find out from your partner. And so just communicating it, being open and having this discussion with each other, because there is no right or wrong. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And I was so traumatized by hearing my friend's story that I literally had to ask my man, Stefan Speaks, what he thought about it, because I'm desperate to find a way for us to be able to have these beautiful relationships and not be combative with each other about what type of person, what type of woman, what type of expectation we have. Click here right now to learn the high price women pay when they settle for the wrong person.
And I remember 35, people saying, girl, you better go get a man, you know you almost 40, as if almost 40 is bad. I kept asking myself, is it better to be alone